Right. When you're in the juggle of going to bed tired, waking up tired, running around after the kids, work, and trying to keep your health in check, it's easy to feel like that you're constantly fatigued, you're fighting the edge of burnout, and it's often hard to navigate where the right move is to get you out of it. Today on the Newstrength Way podcast, we are going to be dialing in the strategies and frameworks that we use with ourselves and with clients to help them manage the fatigue of balancing all of the things in their life and still being able to move towards their goals. Nath, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Jacob. I'm very excited to talk about this. This is something that I enjoy navigating and helping people with.
This first step is just more of
Yeah, I just took a really big sip of a caffeinated beverage, but it's real, and a lot of people are trying to navigate it, and it's a really common question that I get. I think obviously training at stupid o'clock and trying to do the juggle, normally people ask, what do you do to do that? And there is strategies and tactics, and I think some thought processes as well that we'll pass on to the listeners today, and it'll help them get through these periods where you're going to be tired, you're going to be busy, you're going to be stretched, but stopping's also not an option. We need to figure out how to get through the seasons.
Yeah, so let's kind of define where people feel like they're at in this stage often. Like, what are the conversations that come up when we're talking with clients in the gym or people who are generally inquiring about starting training and trying to figure out that balance for them? Like, what pops up there?
It's like most of the time when they come to us, they're at a point where they're fatigued, and they have a lot competing for their time, their energy, their mental capacity, and all those things. But doing less isn't helping. I think it's a big one where I think they understand that, and they've gone to the point where they're like, I just tried to do less and sleep more, and I haven't been exercising as much or whatever it may be, but they're not generally feeling better. So then we look at things and converse about obviously increasing your capacity through being healthier and active and whatnot. But I think it's just they get stuck not knowing where to go from here, where it's like, I'm already tired, I'm already busy, and I don't have much time. How can I be expected to do X, Y, and Z to try and have more energy and have a more energized version of myself in this busy period? But it's very variable on where that person is in that timeline for them. But a lot of the time they don't have much in the tank, but they know they have to do quote unquote more to try and get the result that they want.
And I feel like it's in that stage where you're expected to do more with less resources. Like, it's sort of, if that was your job, if your boss asked you to do more work, but it's like, no, I can't give you as much help, or you can't get as much money, or whatever that situation is, you're like, I feel like I'm getting gypped in this situation. I feel like that's the balance of where a lot of people feel like. The equivalent
would be actually you'd get a pay cut.
Yeah. And then you add, let's not even add calorie deficit into this equation where your energy is literally getting a pay cut. But I do feel like that's kind of the feelings that sort of start to pop up. And then the symptoms might be like whether you're more snappy at home with the kids, or these feelings like where you don't feel like you're in control of your own life because you're in the juggle of all these things, and you don't feel like you've got the time for yourself as such. And then expecting that, like, you go towards the convenience of like, I'll just grab takeout, we'll just do the easier option here and so on. I'll just scroll my phone again for another 2 hours. Whatever those things are, is like it's often in a way of like just, I guess, trying to have a little bit of control back, even though the control's not helping you get to where you want to go, and it's often making you feel worse, not better.
100%.
So
100%.
I think one of the things I do want to define with, like, a lot of people in this stage feel like they have a motivation problem.
Yeah.
Like, that's I'm not motivated, I've got so much going on. It's like, I don't think necessarily it's a motivation thing. I think it's being able to have the scaffolding to manage the situation and the loading that they're under. And I think a lot of the time that you're playing from behind the eight ball. Like, it's you've let the world get a head start against you, and then you're trying to catch up from there, and it's not easy to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's that, and I think the like, obviously everyone loves to feel energized and purposeful and whatnot, and that's how I describe motivation. It's like this internal thing of being, the desire outweighs all the other variables, so it makes it easy. But it's not reliable, it's not consistent, which we've spoken of many times. But I think for those people in that season, it's probably the wrong outlook of it's not the motivation comes and then you'll take the action. It's probably, I need to put some things, like you said, the scaffolding and whatnot in place, which we'll give you guys today, on how can I just make sure I'm making the minimal effective dose of actions to move me forward, because whatever this season is, and for most people, not everyone, sometimes it is doing the minimal and the minimum and what you can do, but realistically, there's going to be something that you can do to build capacity, to rebuild your energy, to start feeling better, even whilst you're busy, kids, business, and all the other variables.
I feel like a little analogy, and because we are talking to parents here a lot of the time, the one that comes to mind is like when your kids want to race you, and if you get out in front, they just go, I'm out now. Like, I don't think I'm going to win because I can see you're going to win, so I'm just not even going to play. And I feel like that's the gap of motivation there. Like, if you already feel like you're behind, it's like the motivation's not going to be there to do it. But when you're racing your kid and you let them out in front and they start running along and they look back and they're in front of you and they think they're going to win, they're more motivated than ever to keep on charging. And I feel like that's what happens in our brain on a like more simplified level, is like with motivation we've talked about so many times. It's easier to keep on or being motivated to win when you're already winning.
Yeah.
Like, it's very, very difficult when you're behind, and often it's not necessarily the motivation that gets you to take a kick at that, or to kick forward in that point there. It's a kick in the arse that does it for you. It's a putting the frameworks back in place so that you don't feel like it's as much of a stretch or a gap to get back to being square again. And I think it's this gap of like where people think their lack of motivation, but they just haven't set up the game to help them.
Yeah.
So let's talk about getting back to square one again. What does that look like? And then we'll go in towards the frameworks of preventing going down to that route. I think one of the things that a lot of us can feel like identify that they're in burnout here, where they're really just under the pump and under fatigue, and it's probably not like that true burnout stage there. We're just at that point where it's just getting, it's difficult, it feels a bit overwhelming, but you're not out for the count at that point.
Yeah.
So how do we get somebody back from where they're in that fatigue to where they feel like they've got the structures, they're on the ball again, and they can feel like they've got the potential to start winning? They can feel like they can handle all the pieces that are there.
Yeah, 100%. I think first thing we need to get clarity and just be honest of the part of, I guess, the season, we'll call it, of life that person's in. Whether that's a busy parent that's got 2 kids, 3 kids under 5, or it's the person that's taken on a new job and they feel like they're so stretched and tired and they have late nights, early mornings. Like, we need to look at the actual season we're in, and then we need to pick goals relative to that season. Where I think sometimes, Jake, where people get stuck is they look to this endpoint outcome that they wish to achieve, which is still relevant. But if we're looking that far ahead whilst in the season, it looks impossible. When we don't need to look at how we're going to achieve that long-term goal, it's how do we just get ourselves one step closer. So I think let's zoom out for the bigger picture so we can get context, but then let's also zoom in to see what can we do in this so we can actually move forward. And I think a common one comes up when I'm talking to people, and I know you have this too. It's normally the reasoning someone's not doing something is a great reason to do it. So if someone's like, I'm just too busy to do that, then it's like, well, if every time you're busy, you're going to stop. And then generally the answer is no. It's like, well, do you want to stop every time you're busy? Or if every time the kids are sick, do you want that to derail your training for a month? And generally they'll say no. So whatever the reason is that they're using, it's like, cool, we just need to have systems in place and support structures, like you've mentioned, to make sure it's not going to be perfect, but we have something here that we can utilize. So when this season comes up, in whatever capacity it comes up again, we can actually do these things. And then I think that's the first step. It's realistic outlook and a truthful outlook on the season, and then where are we going towards, and what are we happy to do in this moment. So in 3, 6 months, 6 years, whatever it is, when this season comes to a close or it transitions to something else, we're further ahead and we haven't lost ourselves. And like you said, it isn't like in that race it's 10 miles away and now you don't even know what to do with yourself. It's just about moving forward.
And I do think to add to that as well, as you said, like that's often where they feel like they're so far away from that. One of the things that I do see often with people in general is they feel like they have to close that gap as quickly as possible, which it's great to see people taking action. But it's when you're looking at somebody, the issue they're having is the fatigue that they're experiencing and not being able to balance that out. Going and killing yourself for 2 hours a day in the gym and absolutely exhausting yourself when, one, you haven't done that already. Like if you're somebody like yourself that's trained hard for the last 15 years, you'll probably be able to handle that. But the person who's like jumping up off the couch, trying to get back into like putting their health first, then they try to play catch up on the fact they've done nothing for 10 years by going and putting in double sessions, double days and so on when they're already under the pump with fatigue. And they often just drive the fatigue further. They feel worse than they started before. And then they're convinced that it's like, oh no, this isn't for me. It's not going to work.
It's interesting with that though, because I feel like it has a direct relationship with like belief building that it's working to. So I think when you have the human there, like someone might do, let's say they do once or twice a week, but if they don't believe that's actually moving the needle, then they won't. Then the adherence stops because it doesn't work anyway. Right? And then you don't want to do too much because you don't want to be dead either.
Yeah.
But there's this. I feel like the more I've worked with people over the last decade and a half, 15 years of doing it or whatever it is, there's this such a strong like relationship and parallel. We need to do enough to get a result because that injects belief. But we don't want to do too much where it feels like they can't adhere to it because they assume that amount of volume or training or intensity or whatever it is creating the result. So it's like this really
it's really
fragile dynamic thing.
It's having guardrails on both sides.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like it's like too little is going to be too slow for progress. It's like when you look at, I know we've talked about in other episodes of like sustainability on a diet and deficit. And it's like, well, a small deficit would be better, but it's like, if it's so small, you're not going to see it. And then you can bust it on one weekend and you're back to square one versus like a more aggressive deficit, even though it's not sustainable at all, but fat loss is not going to be like, you can't keep on being in a deficit forever, you'll die.
And 2010 Nath would look at this Nath now and completely disagree with him because of that. He would be like, oh no, it has to be small and sustainable. He said, I don't have time for that. Yeah. Like if I'm going to go through that deficit,
guardrails on both sides. It's like, don't starve yourself.
Live and learn.
There's that old story of that bloke that they literally starved him. They just gave him water and micronutrients for like, I think it was nearly 400 days. And he was like probably going to die if he didn't do something drastic like this. And everyone's like, oh, well, this dude's going to put on all the weight as soon as he gets back food again. I think they checked in with him 10 years later and he'd put on 3 kilos, which is basically in range of like, you probably just ate a little bit more food in a couple of weeks before that there.
Or
and it's
day.
like, or the day or so on. And it's within variation of an individual person. But everyone was like, well, it's going to happen. But he did it for so long and so drastically, but that reset where he was at. Once again, that was like saving his life, because if he didn't do something that drastic, he was probably going to end up having a heart attack. But I think when we peel it back there, it's like, you've got to have the guardrails on both sides. And it's like, don't push yourself deeper into that fatigue or deeper towards that burnout than what you should for where you are, but also don't underdo it so much where it feels like you're not going anywhere.
100%. All right, so listeners maybe flirting with the B word, burnout, they're fatigued, they're tired, they know life demands more from them, but they don't have more to give. What are we doing?
Well, the first thing, like, let's assume this person's already training.
Yes.
Like, let's not take this as this person's already training 3, 4, maybe 5 days a week, but they're just finding it's increasingly hard to keep giving their best effort. The first thing is probably looking at how you're structuring your training in the start. Like, are you intentionally following something structured and periodized? Are you just winging it every day?
I would underlie that if I can and interrupt. Normally, what I try and talk to people before that, like tactical, is like, are you fatigued and burned out, or are you just uninspired and fucking bored? Are you bored as shit? Like, do you get up every day and hate what you do? I was like, no training, like none of this tactical stuff is going to matter if you're not a bit fired up about what you want to do. I think that's a big thing. I think that underlies a lot of things. And obviously some people can't just quit their job. Like, I understand that. But if you're looking for a tactic which will give you like higher dose creatine, is very helpful to manage fatigue. Like, there's things that'll come up in this podcast that you can take away tactically and implement straight away. But if you're just a little bit, I don't know, disenchanted or not very motivated from the day to day, I think that's probably something to look at first. Yeah,
and I think like if you dive back into our first episode for this year, I can't remember what we called it, but essentially first one for the year, wrapping up our achievement roadmap. We ran that workshop. Massive turnout, by the way, for you guys that are listening in that weren't there in-house. Like, I think we had about 50-odd people come along to that, which was awesome. But one of the lines that we talked about in that there is vision without traction is hallucination, and traction without vision is going to equal burnout. Like, so you've got to have where you're going that's exciting you, and you've got to take action towards it there to actually get there. Otherwise, you're just daydreaming.
Yeah.
On the flip side of it there, if you're doing a lot of work, but you don't feel like you don't know where it's going and where it's leading you, you're going to have a really damn hard time sticking to it. It's going to feel fatiguing because you feel like you're just spinning your wheels. It's Groundhog Day at that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's where it comes to there is like if you've got that in place and you know, and let's assume the person knows where they're going at this point and we're going in, and maybe I think that's probably the first step is like if you know where you're trying to go, you know it's meaningful for you, but you're then battling these things. Now what do we start to tinker
100%.
with as a tactical standard? So then that's where we're looking as like, does the training have purpose? Does it have structure? If you're not following something that's going to manage fatigue, because damn, like we've done it intentionally to ourselves at times of like, let's just see how much the body can handle. It's really damn hard. Like when we're doing squat every day in the lead up to, I think we both had holidays booked years ago, and it was just max out every single day. And it's like, how bad my knees felt from about 3 days in. And it was like, what are you doing today? Maxing out the squat again and going again. But it gets harder to do that. If you see where it's going, it's fine. But other plans, and you can manipulate around with that on so you can have a balance to the plan, so you can have recovery through there. But if you're just trying to hammer yourself every single day and there's not a way that is structured, and that's where having a good coach comes in handy, or having a thorough understanding of the fatigue that comes from the different types of training, lower body versus upper body, how heavy you're going each day and how much volume you're actually putting into it. So
I think that's 100% something to touch on. And I know we've spoke about this off quote unquote off the air. I think a lot of the time fatigue obviously will generate fatigue from programming, but I think for people in their lives, I think their physical outputs are generally their least fatiguing thing. It's going to be the juggle of the kids. It's going to be the work, it's going to be the lack of sleep. Like I very rarely... and
you can't deload from your kids though, bro.
No, exactly. And you can't even deload in training. I think it's more like I don't think anyone's actually, or very rarely anyone's actually achieving an intensity they have to recover from because they have this big weight that they bring in. So normally the training is the cup filler, and I've rarely, sometimes, but I rarely see anyone going over a true RPE of like a 7 or an 8, and it's generally always auto-regulated. But you don't want to be doing, like you said, just something that has no purpose or no compounding return. But I think if they've got that where they're not training stupidly or just absolutely thrashing themselves, I'd say
and
to the next
and if
point.
you are, it is then just managing, like you might need to auto-regulate a week. You might need to plan some down weeks in there where you are just taking a little bit off there. One of the old strategies that I used to use that I got from an old coach of mine, when mostly for sickness. So if you had like sickness popping up, it was like just strip a set off all of your assistance lifts and all your accessory work. So it was basically because it was like this was when I was competing, and the aim was that I still wanted to be hitting the targets in my main lifts that I wanted to. So I was like, all right, well, we'll get up for that 20 minutes of the session. And then after that, we're just going to go through the motions. We'll go back to like a 7 or an 8 intensity, and then we're also going to drop the volume down there so that the recovery demands aren't quite as much, but we can get the intention out of it at the main part of the day. Then we'd move our way on and then just manage that for a few days, a week or whatever it is until the symptoms go away, and we can build our way and ramp back through, and you haven't lost too much of the stimulus and the intention for the program.
Yep.
So an X piece, sleep like as best as you can, obviously depending on the age of the kids. And like I know last night Max woke up with night terrors, and it was about half an hour that we were just getting screamed at, and there was no solution. He vomited on me at one point, and like you can't control that, but trying to still put some guardrails in place for your sleep so that you can recover is probably an important factor there that I think we probably in the juggle sometimes forget about, because it's like, well, I just got to get up early and I got to get on with it. I got to get this job done. I got to do this, and the school lunches and so on that you have to pack for the next morning. When once the kids are in bed and you've got the long list of jobs that need to be done, it can be easy to put yourself last in that position there.
I don't disagree. I just think it is.
I know you don't sleep.
I don't sleep, and then everyone thinks I'm different. I'm definitely not different. I would lean more towards, like, obviously I sleep. And it's funny, that post that went viral, 99.99% of comments were positive, and the other ones were like, why would you ever sleep for 5 hours so you can train? It's like, training takes 45 minutes. 5 hours and 6 hours max if you're not going to train. Anyway, long story short, your sleep will be what it is. Like, Jake's right, you got to put in guardrails. Like, if you are complaining you're tired because of the kids, but then you stayed up for 2 hours scrolling on your phone to disassociate from how burnt out or how, like, distracted you need to be from those things. Like, obviously the next day is going to be hard, and there's no judgment. Like, parenting is hard as shit, especially whilst you're trying to juggle everything else. So I understand that, and in the moment it feels nice because you've been on the go and you've done all these things. Except when Jake refers to that guardrail, it's like, if you have jobs to do and you're not getting much sleep and you have this thing, like, sorry, but realistically, you probably know don't sit on your phone and scroll for 2 hours till it's 12:30 and you have to get up at 4:30, because then there's just rinses and repeats, like this same cycle we get stuck in. So I think, yes, like, sleep as much as you can. I think where people get stuck is they do things like that, where it's another Netflix series or another show because it's been a big day and I just want to do my thing. But I think that inhibits them to take the actions they need to take to have compounding positive effects. And they stay in this loop where it's so common. And dads and mums, where I'll talk to them and they'll have their day and they'll be really tired. They'll finally get the kids to bed. They might do that, like get lunchboxes, school things ready. And they're like, I'm just going to sit and watch my show for an hour, half an hour, which is fine. But then normally it ends up being an hour and a half, 2 hours. And whatnot from there. So I just encourage, like, have a bedtime alarm if you can. Obviously, whatever the kids are going to do, they're going to do. Let's not worry about that because it just is what it is. But when that comes to that point, you just have to actually go to sleep. Like, you can't negotiate it because it's just going to impact the next day and the day after that. So I think installing those guardrails, like, I do think sleep's important. I don't think people realise, like, I understand that. But there is in my personal opinion, there's a physically tired version of Nath that's still fulfilled and has momentum and wants to get after it, and that's what makes it easy to get up. And then there's the other one that could potentially sleep more, but is he as inspired, as revved up because he's not doing those things that he knows fills his cup? So I'd say with that, like, back to the containers, it's you have to put boundaries in place to sleep, but also it is what it is.
Yeah, I think, like, having a TV in the bedroom is a dangerous move.
Yeah,
like, I'll just put this on just until I go to sleep, and I'm going to watch this new show that's just come out, and there's always a cliffhanger on it. Like, Netflix has got this shit dialed. Like, they don't make shows that just roll their way on and you can just stop at any point and catch back up. There's always something that just hooks you into the next episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, yeah, it's great. I'm all for it, but just don't do it at
money.
Yeah, don't do it at 9 o'clock at night and then be up till 12 if you want to get shit done and be feeling better for it.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Next simple one is, like, just reducing the demands on yourself to make decisions all the time. Like, so I'm talking,
100%.
like, do you need to have to make a decision on what you're having for breakfast each day or lunch each day? Just prep that shit in advance or have it in some way that you can have it organized. Like, it doesn't have to be in a Tupperware container every single day. But if you've got it dialed to where it's like, all right, you know what that is, you know what it's going to be, like, so that you can be on the ball with it, and you can prep it on Sundays or so, and then it might take 10 minutes as opposed to 25, or just wondering the night before, what am I going to have for lunch tomorrow? The less decisions that you can make on that, the better. Like, I know often when we go out to grab, if we're grabbing a feed somewhere, like, I like places that have the smallest menu possible. Like, if there's 7 pages on the menu, I'm like, there's too many things. Like, just I'll just ask somebody, what's the recommendation? Like that. I'm like, sweet, let's go with that.
Let's go, what's the 10% calories in grams of protein?
Yeah,
please?
Do you reckon any waitress is going to know that ever? No. Good luck to you, mate. Good luck.
I know. That was a joke.
Minimizing the decisions that you need to make on that there. And then I think this is probably just an overall thing that's like, okay, cool. Can some of these things be managed by somebody else? Like, are there things that you're doing that you probably don't need to actually put on your plate, but you refuse to let it off your plate? And I think that's often a lot of things there is like, I know many times for us with the business, there's certain roles that I'm like, this probably should be managed by somebody else, but I still just don't give it to somebody else. And I think obviously when the more that you do get pressure from different ends, the harder it is to just keep those things up, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. And that's where you are going to feel the fatigue. And that's where those other things are going to start to compound on there, and you're going to be frustrated by those stuff. But I don't know, if it's getting your lawns mowed once a month by somebody else, and it means that you don't have to lose that couple of hours that it takes you on the weekend. It's only once a month, but it makes you feel like you don't get a weekend to recharge because you've got to do those things there. It's probably worth $100 that it costs you to do. That being said, I've got a massive yard and I just don't mow it, and it just turns into a jungle. But that's your other option. Just leave it and just don't care about it.
All right.
What do you like nutrition wise? I think is the big one. There's a few things there, and I know you've got some tactics there. So like, give us your biggest nutrition tactics to just keep things simple from a recovery standpoint, managing fatigue. let's go for it.
Yes, simple is good. I feel like I do keep it simple. Like you said, like with the not wanting to think what's for breakfast or lunch, easy, I just don't eat them. And then when I do eat or when I break a quote unquote fast, like it doesn't have to be complex, but what I don't negotiate with it is I will never not hit my protein for the day. And that's not just for a physical outcome or like an aesthetics thing, is that it keeps me full, it keeps me energized, and it keeps me sustained, essentially. Like, so if you're not hitting your protein targets, which for most males, it's going to be a gram per centimetre of height. So if you're 180 centimetres, try and get 180 grams a day. If females can do that too, that would be awesome. But sometimes it gets hard to fit in their caloric needs on that point. So if you're in a deficit, and let's say it's, I don't know, you're eating 1,500 calories and 10% I'd hit in grams of protein as a minimum. And I just keep that there. So just make sure, if you're someone that's like, Nath, I'm not going to measure it, just measure it once or twice, like in that week, just to see where it falls. And if you're quiet, consistent, just have it focused. You can even just try and have, like I said, the 10% rule before. If you can get something that's 500 calories and then you can have 50 grams of protein in that 500 calories, you can just use that and upscale it or just put it down. It's really like, you can talk about carbohydrates and timing and all this stuff, except the busier I got, the less I cared about it all. Like, I genuinely do not care about my carbohydrate intake on the day or my fats. I will hit protein, I will hit my calories for the day if I'm managing them, and then making sure that I eat nutritious foods that will have micronutrients. But everyone knows that. Like, it's not complex. It's just eat fruits, eat vegetables, get your protein in. And then outside of that, just leave all the rest of the room for experiences.
The only other tactic that I do think on this is valuable is, like, don't go low and high with your food. Like, the typical thing of, like, all right, cool, I'm going to be really dialed from Monday through Thursday, like, till Friday lunchtime, whatever, and then absolutely centered on the weekend is, like, generally the reason why you end up, like, burnt out and fatigued is, like, your 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, sort of, like, in that there. It's the juggle of the stuff that you go through in the week. And if you're trying to do that on as low possible calories, and then you don't actually recover from the 3 days of pizza and beers and stuff like that on the weekend. Like, it doesn't actually help you pull yourself back out of that, but you're net zero on calories, possibly still in a surplus, depending on how hard you go on the weekend. And I do think it's a bad strategy to go under with the then extremely back the other way if you're trying to manage your fatigue levels. Like, it's valuable if you're doing it from, like, okay, cool, this is how I'm going to manage my deficit. I'm going to go under further during the week, and I'm going to go back to maintenance on the weekends, and I'm going to be in track with where I need to be to go to where the goals are. But if the issue that you're facing is that you feel like you're fatigued, you feel like you're losing the motivation, and you're not making progress towards that there, it's like, just last from Friday through to Sunday, because you'll last the next Monday to Thursday again. Just give yourself a little bit more through Monday to Thursday, and then just stay steady. Like, I think often a lot of people, the biggest challenge they have is they can't last from 4 to 7 days, because they'll last from the 7 to 11 or whatever it is, and then if they can stretch that one out to the end of the week again, they'll make it 3 weeks straight. But that 4 to 7 days mark is where everyone just keeps on ruining themselves and then getting back into the spiral again. Yeah. And I think if you can just get yourself into balance and commit to doing those things, it'll help you facilitate the movements forward. So let's dial in scaffolding to manage this and make sure you're not going backwards there. We touched on it a little bit before, and it comes back to the foundation of what we talk about with a lot of the parents and a lot of clients that are coming in that are juggling other pieces of life too. But you have to know what your minimums are, not trying to hit your maximums every week. Anything on top of the minimum is a bonus. So what's our minimum targets that we try to shoot for people?
Try and hit 2 to 3 sessions a week. Try and hit your protein target. Obviously, fruits and vegetables so you feel good. And then there'll be some kind of like emotional return activity, like walking outside with the kids, bike ride, like where you're actually engaging in physical activity outside in between your actual training sessions. That looks different depending on the circumstance for the person. Yeah. Could be running. For our parents, generally it's something active with the family. Taking the kids to the park, whatever that might be. Like, you need those fill your cup pieces alongside it there too. Dan, a shout out to Dan, Lock and Dan. But Dan told me something that he got told from someone the other day. He's like, I think you'll like this, Nath. And he said the energy comes from the doing. And I think that's really cool, and that's probably something that we can take home. We'll bring it back around when we close off the episode. Sometimes this lack of energy isn't because you're so worn out or stretched or whatever it is, it can feel that way and feel real. I'm sure there's many people that have not wanted to do a bike ride or something. Like, and I've had it where I'm like, I don't know if I can go to the park and run around. And then I do it and I feel 100 times better afterwards. So sometimes I think the easy thing there is the energy comes from the doing. The energy doesn't have to be there to do the doing.
Second one up, we're going to put some anchors in place of actions through the week. So there's non-negotiables on things like whether that's your weekly planning. Like, we're very big on our Separation Sunday system that we've been using, and that's been over 12 months now that we've been every Sunday. It's locked in. Typically, it's a run first unless somebody's away and so on. And then even if you skip the movement part of it, you're still there getting the actions done of planning out the week. What does winning the week look like? And then what do you see already coming up? You're already planning for those things that are going to be in your way from winning the week for you, so that you can take the action on them moving forward. So that, once again, was on our Achievement Roadmap session at the start of the year. If you guys want to dive in on that there, just jump back and check out that episode. That's a great one to then know how to action that there. Like, your training is going to be then scheduled in for the rest of the week. You're going to put that into place. And how can you make those things anchored in? Whether that's, like, for a lot of our clients, it's that they have a personal training session. Like, they know that Nate's going to be there waiting for them. They know that Claire will be there waiting for them, and they're not going to let them down on that way there. For others that are in the groups, it might be the person they train with. It might be the routines that they structure around. Is like, I don't go home straight after work. I go straight to the gym. Like, Jordan rolls his way in every day, just basically straight through. Like, we've got a 4 o'clock class. He can't quite make the 4. He rolls in at like 4:15 and chills, hangs out, gets to see all the members because he trains in the 5 o'clock class. But he's like, if I go home...
He's always decked out too.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jordan.
Yeah.
He's always looking good.
If I go home, even though it's only 10 minutes away, I'm probably not coming back. So he knows his structures and he knows his anchors. If he knows that he drives past the gym, he knows he's probably not coming back that day. So instead, he just puts himself in a position to win. And I think that's one of the big pieces there. We want to make sure that we've got those anchors in place so that we're not negotiating on those things and we're setting ourselves up to win. And then I guess the last piece there is then having the vision in front of you is the big anchor. Like, you've got to have that there. And once again, that just rolls its way back to that episode. We're trying to build the views on that one, by the way, you guys. Just go back and check that one out. It was a good one. But knowing where that is going to be the biggest anchor that you can possibly lever from. Then if you know where you're going, if you know where the vision is for yourself, for your family, it's going to be a lot easier to take those actions on a day-to-day basis. And then, as we said before, it's like the actions, the traction that you need to make them happen has purpose. And when you've got the purpose, it's a lot easier to stay on track than it is for when you're trying to just do it without knowing where you're going.
100%. I think anyone that's feeling really fatigued or tired or burnout or whatever it may be, obviously there's a lot of contributing factors, but if there was a target chasing after you, I reckon you'd be able to run pretty fast. Not that you want to have that, but I think if we can...
if you do need tips on that, though, ask Claire. Claire will get you running fast.
Intervals Thursday, 5:45 a.m. at Charlestown Oval. I think if we can give some takeaways or key points just to like wrap it up, I think if you can... make sure that you're hitting with your nutrition, trying to support how you want to feel. Like, if you eat like crap, you're probably going to feel like crap. That's pretty simple.
Yeah.
So hit your protein, get your micronutrients in. There's no superfoods. Just eat generally well. Everyone knows it's not that complex. So do that. Make sure you have your training scheduled and not squeezed, and you just auto-regulate it. So if you can come at 10%, cool. Come at 10%. If you can do 100%, doesn't matter. Like, just whatever you can do is fine, and have them so they're not negotiated and they're there. I think outside of those things, obviously, like you said, Jake, underlying purpose and vision, but there's a few other things that you can do just to help that. Like, if you are training in the morning, caffeine can help. Do you have to? No, you do not have to, but it can help. For me, like, I'll decide whether I'm going to train or not after I've had caffeine in the morning. And then that can be that anchor and that guardrail that you talked of. Another cool thing as well, and there's more research coming out, and something I do, I have higher doses of creatine. So instead of having that 5 to 10 grams, I'm at 10 to 20 to 30 grams a day. And depending, that's why
there's a global creatine shortage as well for any of you guys that are experiencing that. The prices are getting jacked up, but Nathan has been eating all of it.
So you can look at that, and there's more research coming from it, and everyone responds differently in terms of how they can handle it with their digestive system. I encourage you to try, if you've been having 5 grams, or if you've been having none, have 5 to 10 grams, depending on just how big of a human you are. If you're a male that's over 80 kilos, I'd probably say 10 grams is going to be better. But then there's also these higher dosages that can help manage fatigue that you can utilize. So I can do that, and honestly, I think it makes a difference, and the research is there, and it's getting bigger and bigger. But I can personally feel that. So there's things you can do that are simple that I do that I use to try and manage fatigue, and I reckon I blur the line more than most on running on fumes. But there's a lot of things that I want to do in life before it's over, and I feel like, not to go too deep and meaningful on it, for me to do all those things, I need to be able to extract a lot from it. So I need to try and find where that balance is, and what I do and don't negotiate my sessions to make sure the training comes in, but the level of intensity and effort is manageable, so I can adapt that. Hit your protein, eat your fruit and vegetables. Creatine is super helpful. Put guardrails in around your sleep, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Just don't doom scroll and watch Netflix and complain you're tired the next day. Like, if you're serious about trying to build these things out, you're going to have some kind of sacrifice there. And the thing is, and with a lot of parents, you feel like you need that at the time, because you're like, I just need that time to myself. But the less capacity you have, the more you'll need that. And then the thing about training and putting in these guardrails and doing more for yourself, you'll build your capacity, and then you'll need that less. Like, you won't feel like you need to doom scroll for 3 hours or watch that Netflix series, because you'll be more fulfilled, have more capacity and more autonomy. So if you're in that where you feel like you just don't have it in you, just start small and just start to put in those guardrails, and you'll do much better.
Yeah, and I guess it's like you said before, it's like it's not a search for perfect. It's just making things easier for you guys to get to where you want to go and not feel like it's overwhelming. Like, we're not trying to dial everything into as if you're trying to step on a bodybuilding stage. It's just making sure the fundamentals and the non-negotiables are hit. And if you can do that, I think you're going to succeed. And like you said, what was you want to wrap up with Dan's quote?
Shout out to Dan as well. I actually spoke to him this morning. Yes. So to wrap it up, I think just an easy way to think about it is the energy comes from the doing.